UFC Vegas starting for a recap. Right off the bat, I'm gonna mention the spinning heel kick KO by Bahamondes. What do you think about that, Malik?
So what I got from Bahamondes is I actually like the way that he mixed it up. He mixed it up. He went to the body first with the spinning back kick. He didn't immediately go for the spinning hook kick, and he saved it for the final 10 seconds. And it landed clean on Roosevelt. So my thing is, I wrote a couple notes down just for both these guys, and what I noticed is Roosevelt stopped moving around a lot. In the first round, he was moving well. He was more elusive, but then he got tagged a couple times, and he sort of, you know, he stopped moving as much. And he set the tone like, hey, if I'm getting hit, well, I'm going to stand my ground. I'm going to hit you back. And I don't really think that was the right move. And then another thing that I got when I was watching Roosevelt fight is you could tell he's used to being the taller opponent because he was doing things that you get natural advantages sometimes when you're taller, and you get natural advantages when you're shorter. When you're taller and people are throwing punches at you, I believe he's 6'2" for 155 lightweight division. So that's pretty tall. So when you're that tall, he got into the habit of leaning his head back because he's used to people being shorter and punching up. Bahamondes wasn't that much shorter than him. So him leaning his head back really wasn't helping in this case because he was just leaning his head back and putting his chin in the air, and he was getting touched by Bahamondes. And then another thing that I saw is when Roosevelt started getting tagged, he went back to what he knew, which was boxing. He started standing sideways, and that back foot was really flat-footed, and he was just content to just to stand in place and trade and start boxing. I think Bahamondes, I think he looked pretty good. He had a very high pace, and as the rounds went on, he really showed his striking credentials. He started going to the body more, started mixing it up more. He is throwing more leg kicks. And I think just mixing it up is what really helped him. Like I said, he waited to the last 10 seconds to throw that spinning hook kick, which was set up great by spinning back kicks to the body. And I think he also threw one spinning hook kick to the leg. So he had Roosevelt guessing where it was going to go. And he also had Roosevelt, on the ground at certain points, not really looking to get back up, sort of biding his time, which is, not what you want to be doing, because that goes into another fight on this, fight card about, body movement and, emotions inside of the ring, and just, sort of staying composed, even if you got to fake it. So that's what I have to say about, that first fight.
Solid fight. Good performance by Bahamondes. Next fight we're going to on the prelims, William Knight versus Fabio Serrant. I'm going to start off by saying I love the animosity in this fight. Even when you look at the face-off, when they shook hands, you could just tell by the body language, like these two men did not like each other. Now, only thing I really have to say about it was probably honestly was the KO. I find it crazy how his hand wasn't even properly formed for the left punch. Still knocked that man out. So it just goes to show how much power this man has. Thing is, though, in this division, I didn't really see anything that can put a dent in this division. If I put him against, if I mentally put him against Jan Blachowicz or who's the dude that fought John Jones again? What's his name?
Reyes, Dominic Reyes.
Reyes. I don't see him really going crazy like that. What do you think about that, Malik? Am I wrong for saying that?
No. So, I got a couple notes that I wrote down for Serrant versus Knight. And so what I thought about Serrant is his boxing looked crisp, But what I'd like to see him do is tire out Knight. You got to tire out the big guy. Knight is very explosive. You could tell when he celebrated and he started doing all types of acrobatics and flips. He's very explosive. So you got to make him use that energy, either by making him miss, or you got to get on him and grind on him and the grappling on the cage, stand him up, hang on him, don't get into these brawls. And like you said, he's still newer to fighting, newer to division. So at this moment, I'm not sure how he would hang with the, top 5, let alone even the top 10, because there's some things that he was doing as well. He was leaning his head back, which was weird because he's not a taller guy. So, for this division, I think he's about 5'9", 5'10". He was leaning his head back when he was getting hit. And unfortunately, Sharant didn't stay composed. One thing I like to see fighters do when they land a big shot is stay composed and finish the fights in a composed manner. Sharant rushed in, and he wasn't protecting his face. He was more worried about, knocking out Knight than he was about defending himself, which is why he got caught with that left hook, I believe it was, which wasn't even a proper left hook. Knight just threw it up there, half cocked, and touched him on the jaw. And you could tell that's a guy who trusts in his power. And when you trust in your power like that, it's pretty scary because, you sort of think you're untouchable. So you're going to fight untouchable and you're really going to let it all go. And you could tell he was letting it all go with those low kicks that he was throwing in the beginning. He was throwing hard low kicks on Sharant, which was really affecting him. And he was throwing high kicks too. And I think if he builds off of that, he's going to get better and he'll maybe be able to crack that top 10 in a couple more fights.
Just needs a bit more honing, yeah?
Yeah, just, I think he's newer to the sport. He's very explosive, very strong. I like to see him go against some more grapplers, because going against strikers, you can tell that's what he likes to do. And he's very strong. Or if he goes against a striker, I like to see him go against someone who's a little bit more traditional or maybe a little bit more elusive just to test himself. Because right there last night, I think we sort of had like a battle of strength going on. Two big, strong guys just going at each other, But it's MMA, so you want to sort of mix up the styles and get a look at everything.
Gotcha. Now moving forward with the prelims, what do you think about the ladies?
So I believe that was Malecki versus Nunes. And I believe Malecki has a traditional kickboxing or Muay Thai background, which I think may have hurt her in this fight a little bit. Because when you're doing traditional Muay Thai or kickboxing, you have boxing gloves on, which are, obviously thicker than MMA gloves. And sometimes that shelling up defense works in those types of fights, kickboxing and Muay Thai, because the gloves are thick, so you can shell up. It really doesn't work well for the MMA when you have the small 4-ounce gloves on. And I wrote some notes down. Malecki's very tall for the division. I think this is women's bantamweight. So if you're that tall, you got to assume that people are going to want to get in. And eventually, no matter how good you are, someone's going to have the style that's going to, expose yours. So, Nunes got in on Malecki. And what I would like to see Malecki do is take a page out of John Jones' notebook. He's another tall, long fighter. When people come in, instead of trying to keep them at bay with the jab, let them come in. And when they come in, have the elbow waiting for them. When they come in, have a knee waiting for them. They're gonna come in. Let them come in, invite them with the knee, invite them with the elbows. And then she was throwing a lot of she was in the orthodox stance. She was throwing a lot of back leg kicks to the head, which is good, But I think Nunes saw it coming. I would like to see her switch it up and throw a switch kick to the head right over that lead hand of Nunes. And I think that might have, been something that just switched it up a little bit and gave Nunes a different look, because Nunes really wasn't respecting the length of Malecki. And I think it's because Malecki's attacks were sort of, she didn't mix it up enough. I would like to see her throw more push kicks, really use her length, and, get used to her size, because this is MMA. So people are going to be looking to come in, not just for the striking, but they're going to be looking to come in for the grappling as well. So, Malecki ended up getting knocked out by Nunes. And one thing that she did wrong was she circled, dropped her hands, and she looked away. So she almost invited Nunes to her chin, who was already very aggressive in that fight and was mixing it up really well.
Okay. Any other prelims of notes?
if we're just gonna run through it, I think Pantoja versus Royval. I thought that was a good fight. I think Pantoja had good grappling defense, and Royval, he's a very aggressive fighter, grappling and understriking. And I think that came back to bite him in the butt because he ended up getting submitted. Sometimes when you're so worried offensively, about breaking your opponent, there's holes in your game that you know, that you overlook because you're so worried about breaking your opponent, setting that high pace that you expose yourself to being in bad positions.
Okay, so
So
my bad, go ahead.
no, go.
For Royval and Pantoja, I actually especially for the first round, I said awesome grappling exchanges in the first. I'm not really a fan of grappling exchanges, but it's grappling exchanges such as these that make me really appreciate the ground game. It was exciting, so fast paced. They was really going after it. I said for round two, I noticed that Royval would implement an interesting way of using elbows in his striking. I thought that was interesting, and it was a good fight. That's what I got for it.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. The grappling was on point for that fight. And I think Pantoja's defense was really well in the first round because Royval was attacking the legs and Pantoja was able to stay composed and get himself in a better position. And he's the one who ended up actually getting the submission on Royval. So you could tell that that's a guy who trusts in his grappling. And he's really known as a striker, I believe. So if he could stay composed on the ground and even get the submission over guys who are looking to submit him, then that's just showing that he's very well-rounded.
There you go. Oh, excuse me. Moving on to Pichel and Hubbard was a solid fight, very good fight. I don't really have too many notes on this fight. What I have is I remember in round two there was a spinning back kick to the thigh from Pichel. I've never seen anything before like that. That was interesting. And I said one thing that was interesting in round three, especially is notable. You said Pichel really picked up as the round went on, and he seemed to get more stronger and technical. That's what I have.
So yeah, I actually remember this fight. I thought Hubbard, I didn't know too much about either fighter. I thought Hubbard was actually gonna walk away with the W because when I watched him in the first round, he came out with really good basics. His hands were up. He was throwing combinations on the outside. He had good defense. But Pichel came out unorthodox, and sometimes being unorthodox, you're getting looks as an orthodox fighter from you're getting looks from a unorthodox fighter as an orthodox fighter that you haven't seen before. And I think that was bothering Hubbard. Michelle was doing a good job of switching stances. And every time he switched stances, that would confuse Hubbard. And you see Pichel throw that leg kick. And then he beat up on the legs and sort of stopped the movement of Hubbard. And once he stopped the movement of Hubbard, that's when he started opening up with the hands and really being aggressive. I think it was an all-around solid performance by Pichel. And he has a unique style that if he could sort of capitalize on it, might give some of the guys in the top 15 some trouble. Be interesting to see who he goes against next because the way he has his hands down and he switches stances, awkward timing, he has a lot of weird kinks in his style that's a lot to figure out. Even one weird, weird thing in your style can throw someone off. But having as many as he does really makes him unorthodox.
Solid fight. Next, we have Jones versus Krakomanov. You want to set that off, Malik?
Jones versus Krakomanov. I believe Krakomanov actually put Jones to sleep in that fight with a guillotine, if I'm correct. And it was Krakomanov was actually winning the striking exchanges. And I believe Jones was he was doing the right thing. He was losing the striking exchanges and he tried to get down to the ground. It was a solid fight. Jones, I believe, attempted, a double leg, and Krakomanov got to his neck and put him to sleep in the third round. It was an overall solid performance, and it'll be interesting to see who he goes against next. Especially he's looking solid on the feet and he's looking solid in the grappling.
Yeah, for me, I have a couple of notes on this. I was like now for round one, I saw that Kakramanov gassed himself a bit when he hit that hard guillotine. So I think Jones walked away with this round because of the control he had in the clinch towards the end. But I did see a lot of people giving it to Kakramanov though. So for round two, I said Jones was trying. It was obvious that Jones was not trying to stand up with him. I said Kakramanov had much better striking, but I feel like he was putting a little bit too much power in his strikes at some point. I said, and when Jones was finally able to take him down, he couldn't capitalize on the takedown due to his exhaustion. And I said, even though Jones gave them some good ground and pound at the end of the second, I still think Kakramanov stole the round. Now, round three, one of the big things that I can't stand and it happened in this round, and I hate when wrestlers grab and they control, but they don't do anything with their control. I can't stand that. So I said, it pleased me greatly to see Jones go to sleep. I said, you weren't doing anything with the control you had. I said, you deserve that. You got what you got. You got put to sleep by the striker. If you're going to hold somebody down, don't just lay on them. Do something. You know what I mean? It's the most frustrating thing to see. What you think about that, Malik? Am I tripping right now or what?
No, actually, I understand where you're coming from because we're both strikers, so you want to see action. The equivalent of a grappler holding on to somebody and not doing anything with the position would be like if two strikers circled around the ring for 3 minutes and didn't throw any punches. That's the equivalence.
Right.
There's a difference between being defensively sound and not making offensive movement. Sometimes, fighters try to stall to either catch their breath or get their bearings right. And I understand, a little bit of stalling, just maybe 5 to 10 seconds trying to hold a position just to secure the position. But once you start going into the upwards of 30 seconds or upwards of, 45 seconds without transitioning, you can tell that you're not really trying to apply damage anymore. You're more or less just you're fighting to not lose. You're not fighting to win. And I think there's a difference in fighting to not lose and fighting to win.
Exactly. Yeah. And you could even see it in the Marvin Vettori versus Kevin Holland or the Vettori versus Adesanya, where he would have them on the cage. Same thing with this fight. Same thing with Jones. Jones would have him on the cage, and he would just be sitting there. He's not actively trying to single leg up. He's not actively trying to do anything. You're just laying there, and it's just frustrating to see, man. I can't stand it. So watching them get choked out by the person that's not even supposed to be choking you out, that was extremely pleasurable. Good performance by Kakramanov.
So what's the next fight that you would like to talk about?
Porter versus Sherman. When we set this off, I'll set it off. I was like, okay, so awesome start to the first round. I said I could not take my eyes off of the screen, the kicks, and I said the kicks from heavyweight sound crazy. I said I thought the stand-up was competitive, but I think Porter stole the round with the ground and pound at the end. I think Chase's coaches need to be a little bit more realistic with him. I think they lied to him when they told him that when he took the round, he asked him, did we get the round? They said, I think they lied to him. They know he didn't get that. I said round two. I said the beginning of the second. I said it didn't look like Chase really wanted to be there anymore. I said for a big boy fight, it had a lot of volume. This for a heavyweight fight, it was a lot of volume in this fight. I said it was a rough and dirty fight. And I think I also think Sherman should have been working more on low kicks. For the round three, I believe that the first half of this round was them going on autopilot. I said I love the obvious breather Sherman took for that low blow, and I still think Porter stole that round. That's all I got for that.
So yeah, this fight I actually have a couple notes for that. In the beginning, it was Parker Porter who was throwing a lot of low kicks, and they were getting to Chase Sherman, and then Chase Sherman did a good job of checking those kicks and returning with his own low kicks. And by the end of the first round, you can tell that he had a lot of damage. He accumulated a lot of damage on Parker Porter. And when he went back to after the first round, you could tell the pace was getting to him. This was a heavyweight fight, but it was a very high pace, like you said. And I didn't really like the body language, of Chase Sherman after that first round, because you could tell that the pace was getting to him, And I would like his coaches to be, like you said, a little bit more realistic, a little bit more honest. Chase Sherman was doing a good job with the low kicks, but those take a lot of energy. So maybe if he could have mixed it in a little bit more and just threw more low kicks to sort of slow down Porter, because Porter was coming forward and he was coming forward aggressively. And by the end of the second round, again, the third round, he sort of had Chase Sherman's timing. Chase was still landing. He just wasn't landing as much as Porter, especially by the beginning of the third. I think it was a veteran move, because he did get tagged and, with the nut shot, he did get tagged. He took a minute off, but I don't think he was fully recovered enough to really use, I don't think he was really recovered enough gas-wise to really make a difference. Maybe, use 2 minutes, maybe use 3 minutes. At the end of the day, Chase got hit with the nut shot. You're allowed 5 minutes. If you know you're down, which is something your coaches should be telling you, then that's up to you to use the maximum amount of time to get your energy back and maybe take that 5 minutes and see where you're at and go out with that 1 minute of fight time left and really explode on your opponent and give it everything you got.
Beautiful. Next, we have Clay Guida versus Mark Madsen. You can set that off, Malik?
Yeah. So Clay Guida has been fighting for a really long time, and he's a very strong grappler. I actually like the improvements in his striking. I believe he fought Michael Johnson last and beat him, and Michael Johnson is a great striker. And I think Guida's pace, as usual, was phenomenal. I thought it was a close fight. I actually gave the edge to Guida. I think his footwork, his head movement, I like the way he was feinting and then throwing the kick. So he was feinting and getting Madsen's hands to go high, and he was throwing the leg kicks off of it. The head movement was really good. His hands were a little bit low for my liking, but he's an unorthodox fighter, and so that's where he likes to hold his hands to work his head movement. He was getting tagged by Madsen, but he was still coming forward, landing very good shots of his own. I actually have a problem more with the judging than I do with the decision, because it's a split decision. Even though I gave it to Guida, 29-28, one judge gave it to Madsen, 30-27, meaning Madsen won 3 rounds, 10-9. And sometimes I feel like when a fighter is up and coming, fighting a veteran, they get the UFC push where, you see it in boxing where if the fight's close, the fight's close, they're going to give it to the new up and coming guy.
Yeah.
Clay's been fighting for, 10 to 15 plus years in the organization. How much more can, they really push Clay Guida? But, got this new up and coming guy. If it's close, we'll give it to him. And I just don't see where they got 30-27 from. Unless, maybe they weren't giving the UFC push. Maybe the judge just wasn't paying attention. Who knows?
Yeah, what? On a side note, who I think is getting a crazy UFC push? Macy Barber. You know that woman?
Yeah.
She did not win that last fight, bro.
Yeah, you know what? Macy Barber, being young and being talented sometimes is going to get you the UFC push, especially if you're marketable. There's a couple guys, Dominic Reyes got a little bit of a UFC push early in his career. He lost the fight that I'm trying to remember the fighter's name, but I believe he lost to Uzdemir. So yeah, if you go back and watch the Uzdemir versus Dominic Reyes fight, you can see Uzdemir clearly wins 2 rounds to Dominic Reyes' 1. But you never know, which is why, unfortunately, you got to try to put a stamp on it. Even if you're not finishing your fighters, you got to press the action in a way that it's almost undeniable that you won, because these judges don't know what they're looking at, and you can get robbed, or, even getting robbed of a round could potentially lose you a fight, as you can see.
Right. All right. So I said for round 1, I said Clay doesn't have long range with his punches, so I could tell it was difficult for him to get inside because he was aware of the takedown. And I said for a wrestler, Mark was actually pretty effective with his striking. So for round 2, I said Clay went crazy this round. I said Clay does a good job of punishing Mark whenever he got too close, and it was making Mark apprehensive in securing a takedown. I think Clay clearly took this round. I said round 3. So even though Clay is more effective or more active, I think he was still getting touched. Mark wasn't really power punching, but he was touching him. He was touching him. And I said in regards to decision, I said in my eyes, Guida won the fight. The third was close, but I thought the second was clear to Guida. But that's how it goes.
Yeah, I believe those are all, great analysis on the fight. Like you said, Clay doesn't really have the long range, and I think that's just because he's really honing into his striking as of recent. I think the next fight he's going to come out even better, but his pace is something that is going to give a lot of guys trouble because he does not sit still for a second. He's feinting, he's changing levels, he's going for takedowns, he's shooting the hands, he's shadow boxing in the open, and for a guy who's been in UFC a long time, he still has high energy and he still has, I don't think he hit his ceiling yet. And I'd like to see him come back and, maybe fight somebody in the top 15, especially at lightweight. Lightweight is such a deep division that, you can sort of get lost, losing a fight like this to Madsen, it's such a deep division that one loss can set you back so far. It's not like the other divisions where you can snap back and get back into the top 15, get back into the top 10. These divisions like 155, 145, and 170 are so deep that one loss outside of the top 15, it could take you 3 wins just to get the opportunity again. So it's unfortunate when you get, weird judging or inaccurate judging.
That's a fact. So now we have Cannonier versus Gastelum. Now my notes start from round 2. I feel like Cannonier isn't used to fighting someone like this. I said Gastelum didn't care at all about his powers, about Cannonier's power, and was just going crazy on him right in his face. I don't think he was quite expecting that. I said Gastelum had an amazing pace, and that man has crazy power. I said actually one thing interesting about Gastelum too is I think it's fairly obvious he should be in the welterweight, but there's something visually pleasing about just looking at his body frame and just watching him hang with people so much bigger than him. But anyway, going into round 3, I thought I loved Cannonier's patience after that knockdown of Gastelum, but I think perhaps he might have been too patient. He might have been able to get the finish, but crazy recovery by Gastelum. And I said, even though Gastelum got sat down, he still entered that round crazy. I said, Cannonier did a great job with takedown defense, and he's simply too strong. He's just too strong. And I think in round 4, I believe that Gastelum should have stopped focusing on takedowns. I think it's obvious he's not going to take him down. The guy is just too big for you. I think he was using too much energy on that. He was wasting a lot of energy on that. And I think he was actually doing pretty good on the feet. Vastly, his stand-up was vastly superior as to it was more effective than what he was doing with the takedowns. I think he should have focused on that. I said, Calvin has amazing head movement. He was slick. And I said, around 5, I said, I didn't understand Kelvin going for a takedown at the 40-second mark. I said, you should have been letting your hands go. I said, even if you look at the last 10 seconds of the fight, he was landing crazy. He got a nice head kick. I think he really should have focused on really letting it loose with the hands at the end of the fight. But Cannonier got the decision. That was a decent decision. What about you, Malik?
So, Kelvin Gastelum believed that he won the fight, which is fair because there was 3 close rounds that could have went either way. And what I believe is that Cannonier I think it was round 3 where he dropped Gastelum. So that's an automatic round for Cannonier. And then there's round 1, which that Cannonier, I believe, did better. I think in the rounds Cannonier won, he was more decisive. In the rounds Kelvin Gastelum believed he won, it was still very close. And I think his coaches should have been a little bit more honest. Don't automatically tell a fighter that they won a round, tell them that it's close. Because if you tell them that they won a round, then maybe they might not come out with the same urgency. But now if you're getting to the technical aspect of the fight, one thing I like that Cannonier did was that whenever Kelvin Gastelum would come in, sometimes he very sneakily changed from ortho to southpaw, and he would throw that right hook. And I believe that's what dropped Kelvin Gastelum. He switched into southpaw, threw the right hook, and then he angled off right after. He was very composed, didn't really use a lot of energy. His style was really refined. Sort of like you see Jose Aldo nowadays. Really refined style, really exerting the energy when he needs to. And maybe that's because he's just being more defensively sound, or maybe it's just because he's older. Cannonier is 37 years old. Gaslam, on the other hand, he's around 29, and he's only fought killers since he's gotten to the UFC. And so, unfortunately, he's, I want to say, 1-6 in his last 7. He's only fought the top guys ever since he got into the UFC. He looked very good in this fight. His movement was very good. He got dropped and immediately got back up. On the wrestling side of things, I understand him mixing in the takedowns, trying to get Cannonier to the ground, because maybe Kelvin is really that much better in the grappling once it hits the ground, and you got to try and see. But like you said, it wasn't really working. And late in the fight, Cannonier was still strong and was still defending the takedowns really well. So maybe instead of going for the takedown and then bailing on it once it doesn't work, maybe just hang on Cannonier a little bit on the cage. Maybe, tie him up in the clinch, because Cannonier is really strong out in the open. So maybe tie him up in the clinch against the cage and do a little bit of dirty boxing just to tire him out a little bit, wear Cannonier down, because Cannonier is very good in space, as you can see, and he's very good with the timing. I believe in the 4th round is when he started letting loose with the elbows. Gaslam would come in and Cannonier would throw up elbow and catch Gaslam. So maybe not abandon the grappling, but maybe use it in a different way. Maybe use the grappling to set up the close quarters striking. And that's as far as the decision. I think it was the right decision. It wasn't absurd like some decisions.
Yeah. What do you think? So where do you think Cannonier goes from here? Does he take another crack at dang, his name? The Australian man. His name really
Robert Whitaker.
Yeah, like where does he go straight to Robert Whitaker? Does he maybe Marvin? I would love to see him in Marvin. That'd be crazy. What do you think?
So 185 actually has a lot of good fighters, and there's a couple marquee fights that are going to be happening. It's going to be you got Robert Whitaker versus Israel Adesanya, and then you have Paulo Costa versus Marvin Vettori, and then you have another good fight. You have Derek Brunson versus Darren Till. I would actually like to see Paulo Costa and Marvin Vettori fight, and whoever wins that maybe fight Cannonier next. Because Cannonier, he is, well, I won't say deceptively strong, but he's very strong, and he, like a guy like Paulo Costa, who sort of, you can see how physically strong he is, and and his frame and his muscle build, versus a guy like Cannonier who dropped down from heavyweight, who's very shredded, a little bit more leaner. I would like to see him fight Costa. I think it would be a very tough fight. And as far as Kelvin Gastelum, like I said, he's only fought the top guys since he's got into the UFC. He's only fought the best. And I think he can hang with the best. But like you said, maybe he should go down to 170. If he doesn't want to, that's fine. Maybe he should fight guys between 10 and 15, just to get his style right, just to see his style mature a little bit. Because he's only 29.
Young.
And he's fought all the top guys already. So maybe fight the guys between 10 and 15, see all the, chinks in your armor, get your style right, and then come back up to fighting the guys in the 10 to 5 range after.
Him versus Kevin Holland would be nice. What you think about that?
I think him versus Kevin Holland would be a good fight. But unfortunately, I think Kelvin can't really lose any more fights because I believe he's 1-6 in his last, 7 fights. And they've all, most of them have been tough, crazy fights. As for Kevin Holland, I think he has a fight coming up, and I'm not, if he wins, I'm not sure he'll fight next because the division is actually getting deeper.
The thing with that is, if they were to fight, I don't think it would be crazy on the stand up. I don't think once Kelvin grabs Kevin, I think Kevin is very lazy in terms of training his wrestling. I don't think he really has any interest in improving it. I mean, he says he does, but from what I see from his actions, I don't really see that improving much. I think if they were to go head to head, I think Kelvin would come out on top with that. There was something else I was going to say about Kelvin. Oh yes, so he's one. Okay, hold on a second. Wait. Before I continue, what do you think about what I just said with him and Kevin? You agree with that or not?
So, Kevin had 2 losses, to guys who enforced the grappling heavy game plan. He lost to Derek Brunson, and he lost I think he lost to Marvin Vettori, then lost to Derek Brunson. But, he wasn't really training his grappling as he should at that point. But after those 2 losses, he joined up with DC, and he's been training his wrestling a lot more. And he hasn't fought since. I think this is the longest in a long time I've gone without a Kevin Holland fight. So you could tell that he's taking the grappling more serious. I think earlier, in his career, when I listened to some of the podcasts he's been on, he didn't really care about being champion as much as he just did as fighting. And I'm not sure if that's because it was too much pressure. But I think after those 2 losses, he realized that he can hang with these top guys. And if he just fixes this one flaw, he can not only hang with these top guys, he can beat them. Because if guys are just applying a grappling heavy game plan on you, or a game plan to sort of stop your strength but not exactly finish you, that means they respect something that you have, on the offensive side. So he has top-notch striking, and if he gets his grappling defense up, then he can use those skills on the feet, and he can challenge, the top guys, the top contenders, and maybe get a crack at the title in due time.
Yeah, I agree with that. See, well, the thing is, the reason I say he doesn't take the grappling serious, like, it's true, he did go to AKA, but he left. He left like 2.5 weeks ago, and I'm like, bro, why'd you leave that? You got DC, you have Khabib. I guess his reasoning was because he saw another UFC fighter there that was also a middleweight, and I guess he says that he doesn't want to become buddy with fighters, which I guess I kind of understand, but I still don't think that's a reason to give up having legends such as DC and Khabib trading you. But hey, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, let me just speak on that. He left DC and AKA to go to another grappling school. Still working his grappling, but I think he actually had the right mindset. The guy who trains at AKA is Luke Rockhold, former middleweight champion, and Luke Rockhold wants to be champion again. Kevin Holland wants to be champion again. They're both in the same division, and they didn't come up together. So if you come up together, maybe it's a little bit different. You can make space for your teammate, but these guys both want to be champion. There's only one belt at 185. So I think Kevin did the right thing and switched teams, but maintained his grappling. Obviously, AKA was Luke Rockhold's home first, so he gets to stay.
He made the right decision.
Yeah, just because, you don't want to start sparring guys that you may fight. Because that gives them time to sort of, fill your time in and just, if you haven't fought yet, and you might fight each other in the future, don't give out free rounds. That's my logic.
Got you. Now, piggybacking off of what you were saying about Kevin Gastelum, when you were saying that he's 1-6, the thing is, does the UFC usually cut people who have competitive back-to-back losses? Because
So
he was wars, man, wars.
it's honestly hard because he's not old. He's only 29. And some guys don't become champion until they're 30, until their 30s. He's not having bad fights. He had, one slip up against Jack Hermansson. He got submitted, I believe, in the first round very quickly. But besides that, his fights have been very competitive. He gave Israel Adesanya a very tough fight. He gave, Robert Whitaker a very tough fight. He gave Cannonier a very tough competitive fight. These are all guys, I just named a champion and 2 of the top 5 contenders and another top 10 contender. I think he lost a couple other fights before he beat Ian Heinich. He lost a couple fights, but, he's fighting the top guys. So it's not like he's losing to guys who are not in the top 15. He's not even losing to guys. He's losing to guys in the top 10 and the top 5. So I don't know. I don't think the UFC should cut him. He's still young. He looked very good. I think he can still be champion.
He's nice.
Yeah.
All right. That's Vegas, UFC Vegas 34. Any final thoughts before we head off?
No, my only final thoughts is I'm excited for next week's card. You got Giga Chikadze versus Edson Barboza. Obviously, Edson Barboza is one of my top 5 favorite fighters. He's been one of my top 5 favorite fighters for a long time. And it's going to be a high-level striking fight. So that's going to give us a lot to talk about.
Most definitely. Is there any other notable fights on that card?
I haven't looked into them, but, this card didn't have too many notable fights, and it produced a lot of finishes.
Mm-hmm.
So you can never sleep on these.
We're going to have a lot to talk about next week, huh?
Yeah, no, you're good. You can never sleep on these no-name cards.
Yeah. I no doubt. We're going to close this out.
All right.